Somehow, some way, the taxpayer's been paying this, been throwing money, because we all look at our check, and it's been going to the government. And somehow, some way, you're supposed to be doing something constructive and productive enough to make sure that we don't have that kind of deficit. It isn't happening. A government shutdown is going on right now. A man has to work on DoorDash when he's really an air traffic controller, that we applauded. And we're up here talking about how much some money is going to cost. And the only person that don't have a check coming is him. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a break.
All right, Warriors, it's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. We got to talk about this Chris Cuomo NewsNation panel that include people like Democrat Senator John Fetterman out of Pennsylvania and political commentator, sports commentator Stephen A. Smith and others. It got heated. That's what I'll be talking about today on Chat with Me, Linda B. All right, Warriors, you know what to do. Don't forget to give me that thumbs up. It really helps my videos go out farther into YouTube. Comment, share, subscribe to my channel, select all notifications, stick around to the end. Let's go. I came across this just today, and I was like, wow, Stephen A. Smith, you've been making the rounds. Oh, it got heated. I'm not going to leave you waiting much longer. I'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Jack Chris, and I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm an air traffic controller for the Federal Aviation Administration. Been there 16 years. I've also been through the Obama shutdown and also the Trump shutdown in the previous. And my question is, under the current political climate, do you think that this shutdown could actually be longer than the previous shutdowns due to the external pressures, political pressures that we're having an effect right now? Because I am actually driving DoorDash when I get off work just to kind of make sure I can pay for my daughter's tuition.
I don't think Washington understands how ticked off we truly are. We're listening to this kind of stuff while a young man walked up to the microphone and said that he had to leave here to go and work on DoorDash to help pay for his daughter's tuition. Meanwhile, everybody up here getting paid. But he ain't. It's this kind of stuff right here. That's how you know, and I'm not accusing any of you directly or personally of feeling this way. I'm just talking about the apparatus that is Washington, the nation's capital. This is why you have so many Americans, excuse my language, so pissed off at Washington, because somehow, some way you get to have these conversations, engage in specific elements of it to talk about what we need to do to get things better. Our debt is $37.8 trillion. Somehow, some way, the taxpayer's been paying this, been throwing money, because we all look at our check, and it's been going to the government. And somehow, some way, you're supposed to be doing something constructive and productive enough to make sure that we don't have that kind of deficit. It isn't happening. A government shutdown is going on right now. A man has to work on DoorDash when he's really an air traffic controller, that we applauded. And we're up here talking about how much some money is going to cost. And the only person that don't have a check coming is him. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a break.
All right. We'll go to the audience.
All right, Stephen A. Smith, you got heated, you got upset. And you know what? That is a good reason to be upset. I mean, you know, Stephen A. Smith, no, he still got his check coming. $40 million a year last time I checked. But I am wanting people to realize and understand truly the reason why we even have this government shutdown. I'm not going to get ahead of this because John Fetterman, who is a Democrat and spoke against his own party, I wonder if John Fetterman is actually going to switch parties. He may not go all the way Republican, but he does not speak the way the rest of the Democrats speak. He doesn't go lockstep. And they probably have disdain for him, because you know how I feel about the Democrat Party. That party will go to no ends to get what they want. There's nothing they won't do. I'm telling you, there is nothing they won't do. And it's going to be explained further in this. But one of the main reasons why we're in $37.8 trillion worth of debt is because the previous administration and other administrations, because this is something that did not happen like in a short period of time, it was a long period of time. All of this money, these NGOs, this alleged money laundering, and the Doge cuts were trying to stop the bleeding. But then you saw what the Democrats did all out in the streets, destroying Tesla stations and battery charging stations and other things, because Elon Musk was trying to like save some money and stop the bleeding. And they mad at him. Maxine Waters saying, nobody elected your A squared. Nobody elected that wig on your head either. But I'm going to show you some other clips, and then I'll be back, because this was a very good segment. I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah, well, it's like that's why shutting the government is really what the Democratic Party wants to do. And I follow country, then party, and it's the wrong thing for the country in a period of chaos. I refuse to vote to shut our government down. I absolutely would love to have. I would love to have a conversation about extending the tax credits for health care. Absolutely. But I would remind everybody, too, this was designed by the Democratic Party to expire at the end of the year. This is not something taken by the Republicans. They were designed to expire. Now let's have a conversation to extend it and not shut our government down, and let's continue to have.
Who has already agreed to that?
I'm the only Democrat in my family. I grew up in a conservative part of Pennsylvania, and I grew up and I know and I love people that voted for President Trump. But they are not fascists. They're not Nazis. They're not trying to destroy the Constitution and those things. And that's part of another thing. I refuse to call people Nazis or fascists, or I would never compare anybody to Hitler and those things. And now that kinds of extreme rhetoric is going to continue. We're going to be more likely in resulting in extreme kind of outcomes and political violence and doing all these kinds of things like Charlie Kirk. For me, all I could say is like, let people grieve. Give people the space. I'm not going to use that terrible thing and that passive assassination to make my argument and try to put out my views. It's like, my God, he's a father that had his neck blown out by a bullet. And now people have forgotten. President Trump was in my state, was shot in the head. And if that could you imagine where our nation would be if he was hit in the same way with Kirk? We really got to turn the temperature down. And we can agree to disagree on these kinds of things. But right now, shutting down the government, I just can't take it.
I apologize for that little bit of noise that you heard in that clip with John Fetterman, but that's coming from him rubbing up against the mic when he turned his head. Okay. But listen to what he is saying. John Fetterman, you need to leave the Democrat Party, because you and Stephen A. Smith spend a lot of time complaining about the Democrats. You complain about how they were calling people Nazis and fascists. You don't want to do that. You were also not in favor of the government shutdown. And he pretty much said that the Democrats, this is their doing. He called out his own party. They wanted this shutdown because they knew they were going to just blame it on the Republicans, saying, look, they control the White House, the Senate, and the House. This is at their feet. No, it's at the Democrats' feet. You need 60 votes in the Senate to pass a spending bill. There are only 53 Republicans. The Democrats could have had 7 people to keep the government from shutting down, but they didn't want to do that. This is the Democrat Party's fault. And I'm not saying that because I really can't stand the party. I'm looking at what they actually do, not what the media says they do, what evidence, investigation says they do. They do things like this, and then they always resort to name calling, knowing that it gets people who are already emotional, maybe have something wrong with them upstairs, maybe they're not mentally too tight, and that they might act on these actual things, which is what I believe they want, so that they don't have to do it themselves. And then they come out saying this kind of violence, we come against this sort of thing, but you were also the ones who were pushing that sort of thing. So it's like they're talking out of both sides of their mouths. They have forked tongues these people. I call them demon rats for a reason. Now, people who vote Democrat, that is your business, but you need to do more than listen to the media. You need to do some investigation. Listen to the things that the Democrat politicians say, and then compare it to what actually happens. Now, I'm here to educate, not infuriate. I am here to educate you, but you cannot be educated when you're too bullheaded, hard-headed, and emotional and brainwashed. You have to be somewhat of a logical thinking person. Now, a lot of the things they said that President Trump was going to do, like ban abortion, a nationwide abortion ban, still hadn't happened. Didn't happen his first term. He said he's going to leave it to the states to decide. That is not a nationwide abortion ban. That's leaving it to the states. They said it was going to ban Black History Month. Didn't do that. I know I'm ranting, but I have a good rant in me every now and then. They lied about that. So my point in saying all of this is we have to do more than listen to the news when they name call President Trump. Like Fetterman said, fascist, Nazi, all these things. It makes a dictator, all of that. He's an authoritarian when he is not for any of those things. Come on, people. We got to do better than this. It's like somebody just dangle a carrot in front of our face and hypnotize us, and it just make us lose the ability to critically think. Critically think. Don't be brainwashed. We have this psychological warfare that the mainstream media has been perpetuating on the American people for decades. And you notice they say the same words, keywords, every station, no matter which station it is. If it's a lamestream, liberal, left-leaning Democrat biased media, they're going to say fascist. Then the next thing you know, they have another keyword or words. His next essential threat to democracy. Oh, and then the next station says the exact same thing. But anyway, I'm going to stop ranting right now. But John Fetterman was right in what he said, not wanting the government to shut down. He says that it is really the Democrat Party's fault. It is. He called out his own party. Now, we hope nothing bad happens to John Fetterman, like some freak accident, and they're going to try to cover their tracks. I don't want that to happen to you. We got to pray about that, warriors. But yeah, this was a very good segment. I'm also going to show you what they said when it came to Tom Homan, the border czar. The border czar. Now, I want y'all to listen to this. Now, again, Democrats, the shutdown. Oh, I know what I wanted to tell you guys. They wanted the shutdown also because they wanted to give free health care and other freebies to illegal aliens. That's what they wanted. They wanted illegal aliens to get free health care. They wanted these transition surgeries for kids. They wanted all of that. And President Trump, they know that he was not going to sign off on that. He doesn't want the illegals here. He's not wanting to give them free anything. And he darn sure as heck doesn't want all this evil, debaucherous ideology taught to children and free sex changes. Come on, y'all. That's also what the Democrats wanted. And all they had to do was 7 Democrats with common sense, 6 more people like John Fetterman to say, okay, we're going to keep the government open. The Democrats, it is your fault.
Look, the masks, it's a bad look, all right? I understand the security problem with it, but it's a bad look. You make these men and women look like Hamas. And then you don't think people are going to react to them that way. Of course they are. They got their, it's like this stupid movie, Men in Masks Not Be Trusted. That's what you're setting them up for. I get the risk. Color of authority matters also. They should have a badge. You should be able to identify what they are. Nobody should have to guess that they're getting duped and they're not who they say they are. Everybody does it the same way. I get the sensitivity of the security. I'm with you. 2 things that I think are getting stuck up. 1, you talk about seeing data all the time. You guys do not put out data enough. Track is the best thing that they have, right? Syracuse University has this open FOIA request. I hear you on shows all the time, Tom. I do not think that you're FOS, okay? I've known you a long time. You can't say, I see the data all the time. Great, I don't. Put the data out, because track, you can look it up for yourself, TRAC, it's an acronym through Syracuse University. It's like 50-50. That takes me to the next point, which is you're not cutting fat, you're cutting muscle. And these communities need people who may have entered the wrong way but have done everything right since. And their kids are here, and they're productive.
But that's for
and
Congress.
Their employers need them. What?
That's for Congress to do. They got to.
I'm not on. Listen, Tom and I have talked about this. You're an
His job
enforcement
isn't
guy.
to-
I'm with you, and Tom makes the right point that they got to fix it. But enforcement priorities matter, okay?
I'm being transparent tonight. 70% of everybody arrested is a criminal. President Trump said we're going to concentrate on national security threats. That's exactly what we're doing. The data shows it. And like I said, for the hundreds of thousands of criminals that is going to be removed in this administration, it makes that country safe again, keeping President Trump's promise to American people what he was going to do. He said he's going to have the largest deportation operation in history. We're going to have the largest deportation operation in history. You look at numbers right now, I just told you, over 500,000 have been deported between CBP and ICE. And that's not counting the first 4 months of the fiscal year that were under Biden. We're not even counting those months. But if you extrapolate that in the monthly apprehension we got right now, you do have the biggest operation in the history of the nation. And one of the reasons people don't understand why do we have the most secure border in the nation's history? Because President Trump's executive orders, his leadership on that, the men and women of the border who stand in that front line and catch and release. And third, because the whole world sees ICE out there every day across this nation enforcing the immigration law, sends a clear message of consequences so families don't spend their life savings handed to a criminal cartel to make that dangerous journey because they know there's consequences. President Trump's policies, whether people want to face it or not, is saving lives by the thousands. Under Joe Biden, a record number of aliens died making that journey. A record number of Americans died from fentanyl coming across that border. This administration is not only enforcing law and making our streets safe again, they're saving thousands of lives.
ICE officers have been taking the worst of the worst. It seems to become more aggressive recently, probably in the past 2 months. A couple days ago, there's a large train station down the street from my house, and there were ICE officers 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's not always affecting just them. It's affecting regular citizens too. Delays, whatever. But I'm just curious why it's become so much more aggressive, and it seems in Chicago mostly.
Well, a couple of things. If it's aggressive, I don't know if I use that term, but there's 1,000% increase on attacks on ICE officers. Have you seen in the media lately, there's bounties on their heads for $50,000 to kill one of them. So they're very careful in the way they do these operations. They got to protect themselves. So I want to use the term aggressive. They're using a lot more precautions when they approach somebody. Second of all, if the mayor wants less ICE agents on the streets of Chicago, then let us in the jail to arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of a jail where it's safer for Chicago residents, it's safer for the ICE agents, and it's safer for the alien. It doesn't make sense to release a public safety threat who's in the country illegally back into the public. They like to say, well, we're a welcoming community. We want victims and witnesses of a crime who are illegally in the United States to feel free to come to the police without fear of working with ICE. That is a bunch of crap. Because victims and witnesses of a crime don't want the bad guy in the neighborhood either.
Amy's question, though, how common is it for the Chicago authorities to release dangerous migrants back into the population?
Every day.
Common?
Every day.
You have stats on it?
Certainly we do. We got a number of detainers we issued that weren't honored. If you
Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, and the mayor of Chicago are not the Democrats. You already know that. They are not going to call the president to thank him. They're not going to really work with him to make their streets safer. These demon rats want this crime. They're going to try and use this silver-tongued technique of, well, ICE is targeting Black people. Oh, they're discriminating. Oh, these people are in this country and they are working hard. And oh, what about people who, although they came here illegally, they've done everything else right since? Why didn't they continue to get their rightful citizenship? Because how else are people supposed to know if they are who they say they are, if they are here illegally? They have to go back, come in the right way, and be vetted. Sure, there are people who broke into the country, but they done everything else right. But the problem with that is, how do we know that you're not a criminal unless you go through the process? Duh. Okay, you might be very law abiding, but you broke the law when you broke into the country. You didn't do it right. There are people who come from horrible countries, just like some of these people that broke into the country, but they still did it the right way. So there's no excuse for it. Again, I say the only thing you did wrong may have been to break into the country, but they still don't know who you are. Okay. They don't know who you are. It's like, we got to make sure you're okay. We got to make sure you don't have connections to the Mexican cartels or involved in trafficking or drugs or illegal weapons of that sort. We got to make sure and do our due diligence. It is a safety threat. A safety threat. Now, from what I hear in Chicago, I just did a video yesterday, and on the cover, you have 3 ladies in red, and it says, "She snapped." There are people on the council, city council in Chicago, who apparently, according to Jessica Jackson, and she works with Chicago Flips Red, she said these people are in the country illegally. They're not even citizens, but they're on the Chicago City Council. What in the entire world? So let me just tell you, let me just clarify some things. The reason ICE does this is because of what Tom Homan said with the masks. They're being doxxed. Now they have bounties on their head, and doxxed is when you give someone's name and personal information, like where they live and where they work, which is dangerous. Okay, because these people are attacking ICE agents. You've seen them throwing bricks, you've seen them ramming into their vehicles, you've seen them cussing and spitting, and allegedly these people are being paid by, the puppeteers in the background. They're being paid. These are not organic protests that are grassroots. These are things that are done intentionally with a lot of money and organization behind them. Because which political party wants these illegals here? Remember the last administration, Joe Biden and cackling Kamala Harris allowed 15 million plus people in this country, and they poured them into the Black neighborhoods who they say they care about. And most of the time, Black people vote Democrat, and they don't even do anything for us. They're not going to, because the Democrats got a lot of talking, but no walking. Okay? Now, I get fired up about this thing because some of y'all act like you don't have a brain cell anywhere near you. Come on. They just know how to spin the narrative because they use the media to help them. The lamestream news. I like to tell the truth. And the truth hurts sometimes, but a lot of people appreciate truth. They don't want it sugar-coated. They're like, give it to me straight, no chaser. Just give me the truth, Linda B. I'm going to tell you. They want that crime because there's money in criminal activity. There are even police-free zones. And then Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago, signed an executive order saying ICE-free zones. There's money in some of this criminal stuff, and the law enforcement, the politicians and the gangs and the drug lords and what all of that, they are working together to keep the cycle of cash coming, which also means they're not going to do anything about the crime. Fancy that. They want the crime. And now they got bounties on the heads of ICE agents. So that is why they have their face covered up. Okay, that's why they have their faces covered up. Y'all don't act new. Now, last clip I want to show you is them asking a question about Kamala Harris. This is so funny.
Do you think Harris could have gotten a deal with Hamas?
Well, I mean, you brought up a good point. I think I was the only Democrat early on to give President Trump credit for the peace deal. Why wouldn't you?
Do you think that's Harris could have gotten it?
Well, again, I don't know. She's not the president. But where I'm at right now, it's like, ask any of the hostages or their families. They think President Trump was a hero and he deserves, the kind of deal for that thing. I think that was really a remarkable development.
Do you think Harris could have got him out?
No.
I think it's a silly question.
It's a what?
I think it's a silly question.
Wait. Do you agree that it's a silly question?
That's why they're clapping. They're clapping because they...
Security.
Hell no, she couldn't have done it. She didn't even secure the border. She didn't even go to the border. Y'all remember she did that interview with one of the major networks, and she was like, have you been to the border? She was like, I hadn't been to Europe. You big dummy, like Fred Sanford say on Sanford and Son. You big dummy. Now she didn't go to the border. Stephen A. Smith would have just said what I would have said. No, she couldn't have done it. Chris Cuomo was like, that's a silly question. Everybody thinking, heck no. It happened under Biden and Kamala Harris's watch. We have to use common sense, logic, critical thinking. She wanted to be president and she sucked at being vice president. Okay. You shouldn't be allowed to get a promotion when you did terrible at another job, but you want a promotion? That woman couldn't even put two sentences together. She could not answer questions. She never had a right thinking answer. They had to edit her responses on CBS because she didn't really answer it the right way. She needed all this help, people editing for her. You know, she's going into softball territory and President Trump going into hardball territory. If she got to be hand-fed questions and spoon-fed, no, she's not presidential material. She's not mayor material. She's not governor material. I don't know what, Officer Tatum said she shouldn't get no promotion for going vertical, trying to move up. Well, going horizontal, trying to move up. Yeah, she was doing a lot of horizontal activity from what, that's what Officer Tatum said. Some of y'all gonna get that. That's what is alleged. That's what's out there. I'm just saying that woman would not have been able to do that. First of all, I don't think her party would have wanted her to do that. We're dealing with the Democrats, right? And John Fetterman, you and Stephen A. Smith need to stop playing around. You need to leave that party. And Stephen A. Smith, you playing both sides. You need to go ahead and make a decision to not even vote for a Democrat again. You spend more time fussing and fighting, not fussing and fighting, but arguing, not arguing. But you know what I'm saying. He spends a lot of time complaining about what they do and how they do it. Like no primary, just push up Kamala Harris and hope nobody noticed that they did not have a primary. But yet they want to talk about President Trump, hurting the Constitution or going up against the Constitution. They are full of BS on that side. I'm just telling y'all the truth. And that's not everything right on the Republican side either. I don't agree with everything President Trump does, but for the most part, oh yes, he's a far better president than Kamala Harris could ever be, or any other Democrat. But you guys, let me know what you think of this show and this content. Please give me a like, comment, share, subscribe, hit all notifications. You all be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America, and march on, warriors.